This is the CBS Evening News. Dan Rather reporting. One of the biggest air battles of modern times was fought today over Lebanon. It came as Syria stepped up its support for the Palestine Liberation Organization. Syria, meanwhile, claimed that Israeli warplanes entered Syria itself and bombed a housing complex in a suburb of Damascus, killing 8 people. Israel denied that Syrian charge. Both sides agreed that the main battle was in the air over Lebanon. Waves of Israeli warplanes, American-made F-15s and 16s, hit Syrian surface-to-air missile sites in Lebanon's Bekaa Valley. Scores of Soviet-made Syrian MiGs rose to meet the attacking Israelis. Israel claimed and Syria admitted significant Syrian losses. Israel's defense minister said the air battle was a turning point in the war. On the ground, as 2 columns of Israeli troops neared the valley, Syrian reinforcements reportedly were pouring across the border into Lebanon. It's said the Syrian force has now been doubled to some 65,000 men. Along the region's key highway, the one between Beirut and Damascus, Israelis and Syrians met east of Beirut. Israel says the Syrians were pushed back. Israeli troops also moved closer to Beirut along the coast, forcing PLO guerrillas out of the town of Damour. We have 2 reports from the battlefront.
Wiping out the Syrian missiles here and moving its ground troops almost twice as far as its original goal suggests the Begin government is no longer content to push the terrorists back, as it first stated, but now plans to wipe them out entirely, and with them the Russian-made missiles, which Mr. Begin had warned threatened Israel's security and must be removed. Syria today fired at least one of those surface-to-air missiles in a series of exchanges in which Israel claimed it downed 22 Syrian jets with no losses, even though Syria claims it shot down 19 Israeli aircraft. Here in the Bekaa Valley, Syria is more than just a distant threat. Its soldiers are barely 5 miles away. Throughout the morning, they've been shelling with long-range artillery, and here, that seems far more than what analysts are calling just a token response. Throughout the day, Israel's long guns belched fire and shells into Syrian-occupied territory. With most of the volleys answered, the deafening roar echoed through the valley. The cost in machinery and manpower keeps going up. This first aid station was set up yesterday for Israelis injured in the valley. Some were hurt and one was killed in fighting to control this area as the advancing Israeli column seized both land and Palestinian prisoners. Israel has now gone well beyond its original goal of clearing the area 25 miles above its northern border. It has seized the former PLO stronghold of Damour, and foreign sources say the Israelis are now closing in on the vital highway that links Beirut with Damascus. By controlling that, Israel can separate the PLO from Syrian forces in the east and can make it easier for pro-Israeli Christian forces in the north and south of Lebanon to reunite. As a precaution, Israel today strengthened its forces on the Golan Heights next to Syria, and it seems clear that Israel has now decided to push the Syrians in Lebanon back into Syria. The question is whether that's a change of policy or whether that's what the government intended all along. Bob Fall, CBS News, with the Israeli invasion force in southern Lebanon.
Despite heavy shelling from Israeli artillery, Syrian tanks rumbled forward in an effort to stop the Israeli advance. More than a dozen Syrian tanks could be seen. This only 15 miles east of Beirut. Truckloads of Syrian soldiers accompanied the tanks. With dense clouds restricting Israeli air attacks, Israeli artillery stepped up its barrage. The blistering barrage slowed the Syrians. And a short time later, Syrian soldiers began retreating on foot. If the Israelis get past here, they'll easily be able to cut the road to Damascus, severing Syria's main supply artery and isolating PLO guerrillas even further. 5 miles south of Beirut, the Palestinian stronghold of Damour came under a second day of heavy bombing from Israeli jets. Guerrillas reportedly were entrenched in underground tunnels and caves, raising speculation that a land invasion by Israeli ground forces here would soon take place. This afternoon, the PLO's chief of military intelligence said that guerrillas have suffered heavy casualties, but he said the Israelis have suffered heavy casualties too. More, he said, than in any war before. In Beirut, meanwhile, there is a sense of impending dread, a feeling that what now is occurring outside the Lebanese capital will soon be happening in the city itself. Armed militias are roaming the streets, ready, if not anxious, to take on the Israelis. "We are waiting," said one man. It seems certain they will not have to wait long. Don Cladstrup, CBS News, Beirut.
The Middle East crisis is becoming more complex and dangerous by the hour. Iraq's Baghdad radio, monitored by CBS News in Beirut, said tonight that Iraqi President Saddam Hussein has been overthrown. Iraqi state television said Iraq has offered Iran an immediate ceasefire in their 20-month war. Iran has been demanding Hussein's removal as a condition for peace. There was no independent confirmation of these reports.
Gus?
That's me.
Do you do wheel alignments?
Every day, pal.
Yeah, but can you guarantee your alignments for the life of my car?
Not on your life.
At Goodyear, when you get a lifetime wheel alignment, you also get a written guarantee. Good for as long as you own your car. A guarantee that's got our good name on it. Now, who else can give you that?
A lifetime guarantee?
For auto service that's guaranteed, come up to Goodyear.
Deep in Devon, England is Gidley Park, the inn given the award for the best wine cellar in Great Britain. Its owner is an American, the wine authority Paul Henderson. Recently, he tasted Taylor California Cellars Chenin Blanc and French Colombard.
These are the best California wines I've tasted in their price range. A marvelous Chenin Blanc, very crisp and fresh, and a smooth, extremely pleasant French Colombard. Indeed, both of these California Cellars wines are outstanding.
Taylor California Cellars, better wines. Judge for yourself.
It was on to Bonn in a speech to the West German Bundestag today for President Reagan, and in that speech, a proposal that NATO and the Warsaw Pact cut their respective ground forces in Europe to 700,000 each. For supporters of a strong defense and opponents of a nuclear buildup, Mr. Reagan had the same message, that he agreed with both. But as Bill Plant reports, Mr. Reagan received a message too. You can't please everybody.
Mr. Reagan was officially welcomed to West Germany at Villa Hammerschmidt in Bonn, the residence of President Karl Karstens. The West German presidency is primarily a ceremonial office, so it was not until the next stop, a visit with Chancellor Helmut Schmidt, that Mr. Reagan got down to business. The two men had what one aide called a deep philosophical discussion about the role of the NATO alliance, on which they agree, and on the meaning of East-West détente, on which they don't. The president received a particularly warm welcome in the West German parliament, his speech interrupted 20 times by applause. First, Mr. Reagan affirmed the commitment of U.S. forces to the NATO alliance.
We are with you, Germany. You are not alone. Let me assure you that the American commitment to Europe remains steady and strong. Europe's shores are our shores.
Recalling his suggestion that conventional forces in Europe be reduced, Mr. Reagan chided members of the Warsaw Pact for their buildup.
We must remember something that Friedrich Schiller said. The most pious man can't stay in peace if it doesn't please his evil neighbor. The muscle of Soviet forces in Central Europe far exceeds legitimate defense needs.
Mr. Reagan announced an Allied proposal to reduce ground forces on both sides to 700,000 men, which would mean 90,000 fewer NATO troops, but 250,000 fewer Warsaw Pact troops, according to NATO's estimate. In discussing nuclear arms reduction, the president once again acknowledged the peace movement, telling the Germans he knew it was not easy to live between the two superpowers.
To those who march for peace, my heart is with you. I would be at the head of your parade if I believed marching alone could bring about a more secure world.
Early on, after Mr. Reagan had mentioned freedom fighters in Poland and Afghanistan, a heckler shouted, "What about El Salvador?" And the president responded.
Is there an echo in here?
The heckler was one of two left-wing deputies who later left the hall. Mr. Reagan was still in a joking mood later when he was presented with 2 live bald eagles, although he was almost drowned out by a siren set off by protesters. A massive anti-nuclear arms demonstration is planned for tomorrow when the NATO leaders meet. Mr. Reagan, however, is perceived to have softened his position on disarmament, and that should help him both inside the meeting and out. Officials here believe that his actions have taken some of the edge off the protest. Bill Plant, CBS News, with the presidential party in Bonn.
Are you getting all the fiber you need? It's hard to tell how much fiber foods contain. And without the right amount of fiber, exercise and liquids, sometimes you can become irregular. When that happens, take orange-flavored Metamucil. The average daily recommended amount provides more fiber. Look how much more fiber than this serving of brand cereal. No wonder doctors recommend Metamucil more often than any other laxative brand. Metamucil, for the fiber you need every day.
Termites, the hidden invaders. Each year they tunnel up from below ground and damage more homes than fires, tornadoes, or hurricanes. Termites could be invading your home right now, but you do have a weapon, Terminix. Our scientists developed a chemical shield applied between your home and the ground that's so effective against termites, we guarantee it. Terminix, we protect your home against termites scientifically.
President Reagan's chief economist, Murray Wiedenbaum, acknowledged today that the White House predicted in private as early as February 1981 that a recession was on the way. In public, the Reagan administration denied any such forecast. Wiedenbaum also told a joint congressional committee that the Reagan administration now has no real feeling for when the recession might end, and he said he could not explain why interest rates remain high. The results are in from primary elections in 10 states, and so are some of the lessons to be drawn. And as Bruce Morton reports tonight, for Senate hopefuls in 2 states, the lessons were these. Being a pipe-smoking, crusty congresswoman sometimes helps. Having a famous father sometimes doesn't.
Some famous political names lost.
The voters in the Republican Party have spoken.
They said no to Barry Goldwater Jr.'s plea to continue the Goldwater tradition in the U.S. Senate. They said no to Maureen Reagan, too. Her father seemed unperturbed.
Sir, your daughter lost the election.
Instead, California Republicans chose San Diego Mayor Pete Wilson, boring, one observer said, but not a flake, to face another famous name, Jerry Brown, in the Senate race this fall. A name out of the past. One-time radical Tom Hayden, helped by his wife Jane Fonda, won the Democratic nomination for a seat in the state assembly. Some barriers continue to erode. California Democrats nominated a black Los Angeles Mayor Tom Bradley for governor. No major party has ever done that before. He'll face Republican Attorney General George Deukmejian this fall. Iowa Democrats nominated a woman, Roxanne Conlon, for governor. Iowa has never done that before.
It looks like Millicent's magic was just too much.
In New Jersey, former Reagan aide Jeff Bell lost to Representative Millicent Fenwick. The election had less to do with Reaganomics than with Mrs. Fenwick's famous charm.
I know that people say campaigning is awful. I loved it.
In the suburbs of Cleveland, there was a House election which did hinge on Reaganomics. Challenger Edward Feyen beat Democratic incumbent Ron Mottle, a boll weevil who had voted for the Reagan budget cuts. A defeat for Reaganomics. But CBS News did exit polling in both Ohio and California and found the voters optimistic about the president's economic policies. In both states, voters agreed Reagan is handling the economy better than Jimmy Carter did. And by big majorities, they supported the idea of a mutual, verifiable freeze between the United States and Russia on nuclear weapons. Bruce Morton, CBS News, New York.
FBI Director William Webster said today his agency was advised not to bring up Labor Secretary Donovan's alleged past ties to mobsters in an interview with Donovan. Webster said that advice came from White House counsel Fred Fielding and that it came the day before Donovan's Senate confirmation hearings began. Fielding had no immediate comment. For folks in the nation's midsection, there's literal truth to the song lyric about June busting out all over. Busting indeed. For more than a week, storms have pounded the area, and today was no exception. Tornadoes, winds up to 100 miles an hour, and more heavy rain. More on the Midwest Bad Weather Blues from Ned Potter.
In parts of the Midwest, it has become as wet now as it was cold over the winter. Around Evansville, Indiana, a 15-minute deluge yesterday with winds of 76 miles an hour. The tower of a radio station knocked down, a grain elevator flattened, an old man pinned in his car.
Unless you see it, you just can't hardly believe what it looks like. It's sad.
In Kansas City, the trouble has dragged on through 4 days of rain. A third of the city's homes were without power at one point. Nearby in Olathe, Kansas, it was over in 5 minutes. At a small airport, a thunderstorm at dawn today destroyed 10 planes. And upriver in Parkville, Missouri, 3 houses were almost without foundation, threatened by landslides in eroded soil.
Monday evening, about 6, it started settling, and it's fallen now about 20-some feet, as you can see.
This afternoon, conditions were generally clearing, but forecasters said the system that hit Kansas City is heading east to the same cities that are just now drying out. Ned Potter, CBS News, Chicago.
A man described by police as a professional hitman and one of the most active in the nation is in jail in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. 37-year-old Bernard Hunwick was arrested last night. Police say he may be responsible for 300 contract assassinations. Inside his home, officers found a so-called hit kit, a gun, silencer, handcuffs, and brass knuckles. Police say Hunwick is implicated in hits in Boston, New Jersey, and Indiana. A House Interior Subcommittee will hold a hearing tomorrow on the fitness of a controversial nuclear power plant in Ohio. As Bob McNamara explains, that plant is overdue, over budget, and overloaded with other problems.
7 years behind schedule, $1 billion over budget, and riddled with reports of construction mistakes, cover-ups, employee fraud, and crime, Cincinnati Gas and Electric's Zimmer Nuclear Power Station is called by congressional experts the best example of how not to build a nuclear power plant.
A year from now, 3 years from now, it will begin to disintegrate.
And even though the Nuclear Regulatory Commission fined Cincinnati Gas and Electric $200,000 last year for sloppy construction practices, today, shielding his identity, a quality control engineer at the plant says quality control is no better.
No, I'd honestly have to say that quality assurance level has deteriorated immensely.
According to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and several internal construction company reports, perhaps hundreds of welders at the plant may have been unqualified for their jobs. As many as 10% of the steel welds in and around the reactor building are faulty and must be done over again. And records required for tracing the origins of safety-related hardware in times of accidents are missing. One report said a Cincinnati scrapyard supplied steel beams to the plant, violating rules requiring nuclear power stations to purchase from an approved list of suppliers. Cincinnati Gas and Electric refused to be interviewed about the allegations, but has maintained that the plant is basically sound.
There's just too much work to do. And if they admit it, then they're going to have to close the plant down for another 10 years and go back and build another one.
Even though the plant is 95% complete, Nuclear Regulatory Commission officials are far from allowing it to start up.
I will not recommend a license for this plant until I'm convinced it can perform its safety function.
Nuclear Regulatory Agency officials admit the agency itself must share the blame for not stopping the Zimmer plant's construction long ago instead of allowing problems to worsen. And unless those problems are corrected, people who've grown up with the Zimmer plant could see it partially dismantled to repair the wrongs that for years the NRC concedes were swept under the rug. Bob McNamara, CBS News, Cincinnati.
In Dallas, delegates to the annual convention of Rotary International voted overwhelmingly today to end racial bars to membership. That vote came in response to action by a Rotary club in Birmingham, Alabama, which last month reaffirmed a whites-only rule. The Birmingham club now has agreed to reconsider that action.
Of all the breakfast cereals on the market today, over 100 of them altogether, only a very few are high nutrition cereals. Buckwheats is one of them. And among the high nutrition cereals, only Buckwheats has a great touch of honey taste.
Mmm, nice touch.
So, for high nutrition and great taste, try Buckwheats, the only high nutrition cereal with a touch of honey taste.
Not all color television warranties are alike. Zenith, 1 year on the parts,
2 years in the tube. Sony, 1 year on the parts, 2 years in the tube. RCA, 1 year on the parts, 2 years in the tube. Curtis Mathis, 4 years in the parts, 4 years in the tube. Why is our warranty that good? Simple. Our televisions are that good.
Curtis Mathis, the most expensive television in America, and worth it.
In the Falklands, 9,000 British troops are still waiting for the final order to move forward against Argentine soldiers defending the capital of Stanley. In London today, Tom Fenton, chief European correspondent for CBS News, paid a call at 10 Downing Street and talked with Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher about what happens next.
Is there any chance, even at this late date, of avoiding a major battle for Port Stanley?
Only if the commander of the area, having his back to the sea, having many, many young conscripts under his care, thinks that it would be better to seek to withdraw. If he did, he's only to contact our military commander, and such a withdrawal would be arranged.
Has there been any sign that he's interested?
No sign whatsoever. And I just hope that once the battle has commenced and they've taken certain positions, that both commanders will be able to arrange a surrender, which would save many, many young lives.
In the Falklands war zone, there are growing indications that Argentina's report is right. The British Naval Task Force did suffer serious losses in yesterday's Argentine air attacks. The British Press Association now says 4 ships were hit off Fitzroy Sound, 15 miles southwest of Stanley. It says one, the landing ship Sir Galahad, which was packed with troops about to disembark, may have sunk when ammunition and fuel supplies exploded. The government now says that casualties were much higher than previously reported. Britain claims at least 7 Argentine warplanes were shot down, including 4 Mirages. In Buenos Aires, Morton Dean tells us the Argentines are claiming a major victory.
What Argentina is reading all about today is the claim that a British landing force was virtually annihilated yesterday while trying to establish a new beachhead about 15 miles from Port Stanley. A frigate destroyed, 3 transport ships severely damaged, numerous British casualties, possibly in the hundreds, according to the Argentine Military High Command, which admits to the loss of 2 of its own planes. Concerning Argentine troops on the front, military censors here continue to portray an antiseptic war, soldiers happy and well-fed. Little to indicate the weariness and wretchedness of battle. Argentina hasn't released a casualty count in more than a week. These pictures obtained by CBS News were said to have been taken in the Falklands capital about 10 days ago. The soldiers send regards to parents and relatives. The medics say there's no need to worry back home. Things are all right. Whether the troops are all right is open to speculation. There are whispered stories in Buenos Aires about Argentine troops being in poor health and poor spirits. Argentine authorities deny that, and they insist that their troops have not been cut off from the mainland, that the airlift to the Falklands is successfully bypassing or penetrating the British blockade. Morton Dean, CBS News, Buenos Aires.
Mrs. Johnson, when you need an antacid, think about salt. The Surgeon General's report says Americans get too much salt. So reach for Riopan Plus, a low-sodium antacid for fast relief. In laboratory tests, Riopan Plus neutralized acid in seconds, 4 times faster than equal amounts of the 2 leading liquids, and kept on working to neutralize excess acid. Doctors recommend Riopan Plus, a low-sodium antacid for fast relief. Riopan Plus.
At Simmons, it's our 112th anniversary, so we're sending you our best. Like a special anniversary edition Beauty Rest mattress featuring our exclusive Beauty Rest coils, wrapped individually to give you firm, comfortable support. You'll also find our beautiful anniversary hide-a-bed sofas and Maxipedic mattresses. Special anniversary values are at your Simmons authorized dealer today. There's just no rest like a Beauty Rest by Simmons.
The NATO summit in Bonn. No doubt you'll be seeing pictures of Western leaders meeting and trying to present a picture of unity. But as Bill Moyers notes in his commentary from Bonn tonight, that's not the whole picture.
If you want to know what really brought the leaders of NATO to Bonn this week, look at these pictures. This is the Pershing missile. A new version of it will soon be deployed in Europe. This is the cruise missile, also to join NATO's arsenal, based on European soil and pointed toward the Soviet Union and the Communist bloc. Both missiles are intermediate-range weapons, like the SS-20s, which the Soviets have aimed at Western Europe. The Pershing can hit Moscow in 6 minutes. Small wonder the Russians have not reacted to any weapon as strongly as to these. An angry Brezhnev has threatened to put similar missiles only 6 minutes from Washington. Some Western Europeans are angry too. Many of the demonstrators you'll see in the next 2 days will be protesting the deployment of the new missiles. They fear that in the event of war, the Soviets would strike first at these missiles to prevent their being launched. This, they argue, would make Europe a battlefield and leave America unscathed. Actually, the missiles were requested by Europe's own NATO leaders, in particular Germany's Helmut Schmidt. He saw them as bargaining chips to trade for the removal of the SS-20. The Americans went along, in part to please our allies, in part to make the Russians think twice about using their superior conventional forces, and in part to quiet the growing concern of Americans that strategic deterrence requires us to make New York a hostage for the defense of Bonn. The truth is the presence in Europe of cruise and Pershing missiles will make us as much a hostage as ever, because the Soviets say they will respond to any American missile landing on their soil as if it came from America. To which some experts say, good, because the knowledge that we would respond in kind will deter the Soviets from striking at all. So the argument is made to deploy cruise and Pershing as one more guarantee that an attack here would bring America into the war and not confine it to Europe. But this was the case before cruise and Pershing. The unspoken premise of NATO, in this age of nuclear parity, has been that America is willing to be incinerated in Europe's behalf. We've always had as much to lose. Not many Americans have really thought that through, and not many Europeans either. I'm Bill Moyers in Bonn.
That's the CBS Evening News and a commentary for this Wednesday. Dan Rather reporting from New York. Thank you for joining us. Good night.
Everybody has a picture of someone. No one has a picture of me. They never say to smile. I guess it's not worthwhile, 'cause who'd want a picture of my face? Who wants a picture of me?
We do. Polaroid's pictures are for sharing. Love is written all over them.
Nice face, Gonzo. Polaroid says love.
And cut! Print it. With my job, I can't afford to get tense from too much caffeine, so a friend told me something that made good sense.
Ah, got time for a coffee break?
Here he is. He told me about Sanka brand decaffeinated coffee.
I told him Sanka's 100% real coffee.
That is good.
And 97% caffeine-free.
That's even better.
Sanka decaffeinated coffee. Good coffee that makes good sense.
They mock our soldiers and degrade our flag, yet they're among our strongest allies. Bill Moyers reports on Our Friends the Germans, Wednesday at 8, 7 Central and Mountain.
This is CBS.
Metro Police shot and killed a 17-year-old who was holding a neighbor hostage. We'll have that story coming up next on Eyewitness News.
From Television 5. This is Eyewitness News, weather, and sports.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Clark, and in our news tonight, Metro Police Chief Joe Casey says his officers were not out of line when they shot and killed a Nashville teenager last night.